Hey, this is Josiah Shaver with the Methow Beaver Project podcast, I'll Be Damned, and today I kind of have like an undercover interview, you might say, because I had the opportunity to talk with a rancher, Bill White, who has had some experience with beavers and has a story to tell about that. But it's a perspective that maybe a lot of environmental nonprofits or environmentalists do not get to have. So I was very fortunate to be able to have this conversation. As you'll notice, maybe the first part here, I'm just kind of riding along in the truck with Bill White and his dog. So it might be a little bit hard to make out. I think the audio is pretty decent, but bear with us as we get going here. But first, a quick introduction to Bill White. Bill has a degree in wildlife management from New Mexico State University in 1992 when he got that degree, and then a year later he actually moved up to Washington, to this area, to Stevens County and the Okanagan County area. And him and his wife, Sue Ellen White, have been here since about that time, 1973, is when they moved up to Washington. Bill has been ranching for 45 years, so he's got a ton of experience in how that works, and how he's seen a lot of stuff with, government regulations on fish and other things like that. They own over 1,000 acres. They manage more than 100 head of cattle every year. They raise pigs, chickens, cows. They have a butcher shop. They've been in the Methow Valley specifically for about 30 years, and Bill currently manages about 100 acres of alfalfa, and then he owns about 25 of those acres. He's done logging. He's built all of the houses. He's lived from timber on his own property, which has been 3 homes. He's a metal worker, and he currently, on his free time, which he does not have, he constructs wood stoves. Him and Sue Ellen have been married for 50 years. They have 2 sons who still live in the area, 8 grandkids, and a grandchild on the way. They are both community leaders, and Bill gives a lot of advice to different people, different ranchers that come around and need some advice on stuff, need some help from someone more experienced. I should also say that Methow Beaver Project does not necessarily agree with all of the statements made by Bill White. His opinions are his own and ours are our own, but I think we can all learn a lot from his perspective. I met Bill. This is a good story of how I got here, actually, to the Methow Valley. They gave me 2 weeks to find housing after we had looked for a while and not found any housing for me for the summer. So I wasn't going to get this internship unless I was able to find something. I ended up reaching out to some of the local churches in this area and just said, hey, do you guys know anybody? Here's my situation. Bill and Sue Ellen White got back to me and said, hey, we have some property, we have an extra room that you could stay at, and that's what got me here. So I'm very fortunate to not only have met Bill, but to live with him and his wife, and I've learned a lot about what their work is, what it means to them, what they do on the day-to-day, and their values and how they view the world. So I'm excited for you to hear this interview with Bill. Let's get in the truck. What was your first experience with beavers?
Oh, way back when we first moved to Colville, we bought a piece of land that didn't have a house on it, and I kind of liked this little spot that had some aspen trees on it. So, and it was flat, so we started building a log house. Of course, we built a log house like the pioneer, and we just set rocks up, and we drug trees up, peeled them, and started stacking them up. But we're working on the weekends because I was working during the week, and I come back there the next weekend and I see one of the trees is missing, and went out and got to notice it looked like the beavers had chewed it down. There was a creek down off the hill a little ways. It was a good 100 feet down off the bank. Hey, Tell, quit beating up on him. Be nice. And so anyway, after a while, they'd cut every tree in the yard, and one of the reasons I like the spot because there's aspen trees. They're kind of neat looking, but they mowed them all down. So I was irritated about that. But I mean, it just happened. So what can you do? And I never did see the beavers. They're kind of a nocturnal critter. I figured that out about them. Of course, I'd learned about beavers in school, but I never even seen one. I didn't know anything about it. And then later on, we had some beaver dams on our place, and I got to noticing where there wasn't a beaver dam, there's quite this kind of a washout. The creek had formed a pretty good washout, a lot of rocks and stuff. But where there's a beaver dam, it collected all the silt, and they would eat all the vegetation around and build it in the dam, and then the dam collected, helped back water, and all the silt collected. And the silt built up to the top of the beaver dam. And then about that time, the beavers run out of food, run out of all the aspens and the willows and things that they eat around there. And they'd move on up the creek. And all of a sudden, we got us basically a little bitty meadow kind of formed. They caught all the silt instead of washing down to the ocean. And they just kept working their way up, and eventually they had all these little tiny meadows that they built just from building the dam. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. I mean, whoever set this up come up with this great idea to build these little critters to keep all the silt from washing into the ocean, and build these little meadows, and all the little meadows, then they come in with grass and other vegetation, which made real nice wildlife habitat. Plus, I did notice that the water table all around there was up higher from the dam, since it was full of water. You brought the water table up, so all the grass within 100 yards, 200 yards of the dam was greener because the water table was up where the grass would get some moisture through the roots. So just learned that from observation. So I never really thought the beaver was bad. They don't really do anything harmful. Anything they do some harmful things like plug up culverts, but that's only when they get close to civilization. They're not really trying to be nasty or nothing. They're just trying to build a dam. It just happens to be there a culvert there, and then, so that's kind of where they come in conflict with humans. Of course, if they're close to your backyard and they chew your trees down, I guess you just have to plant some other kind of tree. But you don't have to worry about it. They don't stay in the same spot too long because they wind up eating all their food, which is tree. They really like aspen trees. They eat some cottonwoods, some other leaf trees. But after a while, they wind up cleaning it all off, and they move out of the area or up the river, down the river. So they're not a long-lasting critter. They may be back in maybe 30, 40 years when vegetation comes back up. They're kind of a neat little critter.
So did you grow up with beavers?
No, we didn't have beavers where I lived that I've ever seen. I'd seen some beaver dams, but they're always on the river, and back when I was growing up, there was a lot of trapping going on, so people just trapped beavers. I didn't know anything about it, except I know that the beaver skin is really neat. Beaver hair is really nice. It's real soft. In fact, they make felt hats out of beaver hair. Mine probably wore off. It usually says beaver, and it has X's, XXX up to 5 X's.
Really?
Yep.
Huh. Are the X's for quality or something?
The X's how dense. I think it's how dense
Oh,
the hair has been compressed.
wow.
It's a felt hat, so
Yeah.
it's basically the hair has been beat to death. I seen the Mongolians, they make their own felt. And there's somehow they do it. They put the hair inside of this thing and they roll it up and down the hillsides and drag it around with horses, and I think it just kind of beats it up, kind of makes it into a pulp, and then you roll it out and make a hat.
Huh.
But any of your hats at the store, your felt hats, it usually has this little thing inside of the hat that says Beaver, and then has X. Usually you get 2X all the way up to 5X. And the more X's, the more dense it is. The more, I guess, beaver hair it's got in
Yeah. Did you learn much about beavers at New Mexico State when you were studying wildlife
No.
management? No.
it. Didn't learn much. They didn't, since it wasn't. I learned a lot about cactus
Really?
and mesquite brush. That's what they got down there.
Huh.
And how to build dirt dams to save water, kind of thing. But you're kind of taught, the school you go in teaches you about things in your area, mostly.
Yeah. Huh. So they didn't have beavers in New Mexico? At least not that you saw.
They got some beavers on a few rivers, but they don't have a lot of rivers there. They got the Rio Grande and the Pecos River. They're two main rivers, and they're really not very big. After coming up here, the Rio Grande is, heck, it's no bigger than the Methow River, what we got down here. It's not very big. It's just slow moving because the ground doesn't slope very much there. Well, I gotta go open the gate. Maybe I ought to give them a little more straw. They're getting kind of look like they're getting bared out down there. I don't know if I'm gonna need this fan anymore.
Do you have any particular beaver stories that you remember from beavers you've encountered on your property or anything?
No, other than that one where I told you about the dams, but it's kind of funny thing is I never did do anything about the beavers. I thought they were kind of neat, and I actually put a water system in, and I used the beaver dam for kind of a reservoir, and I run a pipe out in it because it was probably 5 foot deep out there, and I run a pipe out in it, and I pulled water from there and ran down the hill about 100-foot vertical drop and built a man-made pond, and I fed that with the water that the beavers had built up. But the beavers, they pretty much eat all the vegetation around there, and they had moved. I didn't really know. I think they moved up the river. I don't know if where they moved to, but they must have moved up quite a ways because I never did see them again. And I know that cougars eat them.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if the cougars eat them or what. I wasn't paying too much attention. I was a pretty young guy and I'm mostly concerned about getting my house built and getting the wood in for the winter. Didn't have time to do a lot of research on what happened to the beavers.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you used the beaver pond to irrigate a bit. Did the beaver dam blow out? Did it fall apart after the beavers left, or how long?
Well,
did
what happened is that we wound up moving. I was there for 20 years, and I wound up moving. And the beaver dam, I went back and visited, and I noticed that beaver dam was pretty much filling up with silt. And so, which is good. That's a great thing that it does. And the new owner wanted to know how to get that water system going, and I told him, and he said, well, that beaver dam kind of got full of dirt. And I said, well, I guess if you're going to use that for a reservoir, you need to just take a backhoe and reach out there and dig you a hole so it kind of have a reservoir. But I don't know what he wound up doing.
I think you told me a story one time about a neighbor that his property was drying up, so he took out
we
the
had kind of
dams.
a dry year, and this stupid sap, he was kind of a hippie guy from New York, and the creek, we had a little creek that run down through there, and he was using the creek to water his garden. Trying to find a spot to get through this jungle here. And he come up the river one day and just started tearing all the beaver dams out. There were quite a few little beaver dams. Tearing them out because he thought the beavers was holding all the water back. And I told him, I said, that's about the dumbest thing I ever seen. I said, you're going to let the little dab of water they got in there, by the end of the day, you're not going to see any more water. In fact, in the long run, I said, what you're going to see is the river's going to be even lower than it's been lately, because that water that they got held up in there, it raises the water table in all this creek area. So now that you got rid of the beaver dams, if you got rid of the beavers, I said a lot of them will build them back. But now the whole water table is going to go down, because that all them little dams keep the water table up. And you actually did more damage than you did good. You got a one-day surge of water, and then over the next month or two, you're going to notice really going to be dry. But I think he learned something there, but I don't know if he did or not, but I did learn. They do help a bunch.
Yeah.
They're kind of similar to the irrigation ditches. This road used to be an irrigation ditch, and they took all the ditches out for the benefit of fish. And the problem with that is, one of the big problems, we had many, many miles of irrigation ditch in this valley. And so these ditches all kind of leaked a little bit, and you can see some old stumps, some cottonwoods, and some vegetation. There's some old aspen trees and stuff in here. And it was making a great habitat for quail and ducks and all kinds of things. And it raised the water table in the whole valley. So in the fall, when the river started getting down low, the river was being fed by these irrigation ditches that kept the water table up. Very similar to beavers, but this was on a bigger scale. But they decided that they want all this water, they don't want no leakage, and we take that leakage and put it in pipes, and now the river is not running even as good as it used to run when we had ditches. So I think eventually they're going to come out, I could say, well, the ditches wasn't really all that harmful. They just kept the water table up, which fed the river. In the long run, it did more good than harm. But what do I know? I'm just a stupid farmer.
Well, you've seen a lot of stuff.
Boy, what a mess here to get through.
I know. What do you think, Seth?
See, here's a spot that it didn't have a sprinkler on, and so it didn't get watered. You can see how it doesn't. It's got to have water.
Yeah.
You don't know water, just don't sprout. And this has been seeded. It's seeded just like that, but I didn't have this last pipe on here. So this is going to take a little while to come up. I'm seeing a few. Yeah, there's an alfalfa plant right there. It's just now sprouting. Now right next to it is a mallow.
Oh, really? Oh.
That's alfalfa. It's long rectangular leaves. And mallow has got them little heart-shaped leaves right next to it. Mallow's kind of a bad weed.
Oh.
In fact, this is mallow right here. See these big kind of octagon-shaped leaves? That's called mallow. And it's just thick everywhere. But the alfalfa, look out here where it got water. See how tall it is?
Yeah. Huh.
It's nice where it got water. Now this other stuff's oats. I planted in some oats. A little bit of oats. But oats is just an annual. I'll cut it and it'll be dead for now on. It's just a 1 year deal. But alfalfa is a perennial, comes back every year.
Now, since beavers raise water tables, can they be good for your irrigation? Like, can they, if you have them on your property, can they give your crops more water than they'd have otherwise?
Well, to me, the beavers, if I had, let's say, beaver dams along here, what I would see would be a lot greener, green belts along the edge of the beaver, where the beaver dams are, because they bring the water table up, which is good for, you know, all the grass. If you're raising animals that eat grass, there's a real benefit to that. But I can't really see. I guess the fish have all the authority, so they're more concerned about the leaching into the dirt. It's not like we lose that water. It's in the dirt and it holds the moisture, and eventually it leaks back into the river. But I can't really see on long term. I think that's a big mistake to take out. Irrigation ditches and beaver dams would be the same story. Any way you can keep the level up is good for the land. Okay, we're gonna have to fix this. I got a chain here that's not good.
Has your view of beavers changed over time?
Do what now?
Has your view of beavers and your perspective of what they do changed over time?
No, I really never had I just thought when I was a kid that beavers were made to trap and make coats and hats out of. But I never really knew what the purpose of beaver was. And now I do know what the purpose of them is. The great creator had a purpose, and I can see it was a pretty good idea. Because you take these, we had a big hard rain a couple of days ago, and I mean to tell you, we got an inch of rain in 45 minutes, and it just made all these little gullies and things. And I know back when Earth was formed, the same thing happened. And all of a sudden the dirt started washing down the canyons, and they says, well, you know what, this ain't working out too good. I need to come up some way to keep that dirt from washing out. All the topsoil was washing off. So they come up with these beavers. He made these little critters that built these little dams, and when you get these flash floods, it goes wham, and all this little dirt collects in these little dams, and it saves it. So that and actually, if you take a big steep canyon and you put a beaver dam in it, it saves all the silt, and then you got a little meadow, and over the period of hundreds of years, the meadow gets bigger and bigger. Pretty soon you got a big meadow. And I think that's why, like this field right out here is a kind of a natural dam. It had rocks along the edge, and you'll notice up on the hillsides there's rocks way up in there. I think that dirt from on top of that mountain is sitting right here. It took many years to get here, but this, I'm thinking, it was a kind of a big hole, and there was a rock ledge out on the edge, and it all just washed in there. And that's why it's so level, because water levels things, and so the dirt's washed in here. So we got a good field, and we can raise crops on it. But beavers do the same thing with the rivers. It keeps it from washing away.
Does that mean that if we remove all the beavers, we trap all the beavers, that we get less flat meadow spaces like this?
Well, yeah, you would. I mean, of course, it takes many years to do that.
Yeah.
Beavers are kind of a slow thing, but humans think in a very short period of time, and they need to think over the long haul. And we don't. We want to see it in our lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see it happen right now.
Yeah. Do you think beavers really help fish?
Yeah, if you don't mess with them, I think they don't help fish if we get rid of them. On the long term, they're raising the water table. In my opinion, they're raising the water table if you don't tear them out, if you don't tear the beaver dams out. But sometimes they're kind of a nuisance to people when they plug culverts.
Right.
That kind of thing where you get humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so say you had a beaver on your property causing some problems. What kind of, have you seen beavers cause problems on your property or neighbor's property?
Well, not yet, because I don't have any beavers on my place. What I probably would do if I was plugging a culvert is try to figure out how to make a bigger culvert or something where because I'd like to see them there, or maybe put some deterrents so they wouldn't plug that culvert. Maybe move them up the draw a little bit rather than get rid of them. Try to figure out how to make them go somewhere else.
Interesting.
You know, close by, but not right there at my culvert.
Yeah.
But I haven't had that problem, so I hadn't had to try to figure it out. I think I could get it figured out what to do.
What we figured out at the Methow Beaver, well, not just us, but a lot of beaver groups are basically putting, like, so if there's a culvert, they'll put some fencing around it.
Yeah.
Like, not just like right on it, but kind of
To
all
kind
the way
of deter
around
them
it.
from making a dam.
Yeah, because then they can't dam the whole, around all of the fencing if you make it a certain way. I think that's what they're trying to do most of the time with culverts.
Does that work?
If you do it right, yeah. I've seen it work a few different places pretty well.
Well, I do have one spot that beavers could probably cause me a problem. But they're not causing me a problem yet, so I don't know. I guess I'll worry about that. Maybe I'll be dead before they cause a problem, so somebody else has to worry about that.
Where's this one spot?
Well, I've got a little wooden dam I built for irrigation up on Alder Creek. And it collects the water, and I use that water. It's about 4 feet deep, because the creek's only like 4 inches deep. And so it builds it up, the water level up, and I got a little screen. But if they put a dam right there, it'd really mess up that whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
And I don't want the dam there.
Right.
But it's got a lot of vegetation. They could probably do pretty good around there building dams and surviving. It'd probably be good for that whole drainage, but I'm not really sure they could survive there, because there's an old mine up there that put cadmium. And it might have been some arsenic in that water too. There's no fish can live in that creek, they said, and these little crustaceans. There's no crustaceans in there. The guy did a study on it. So it might be due to that water that got kind of polluted from the tailings from that mine. I don't know. And I don't really know if that would affect beavers, because they're not a big, they don't live drinking water a lot. I guess they drink it, but I don't know how they put this stupid chain together. Found one little spot. I'm gonna have to grind it, I guess.
What would you do if beavers showed up in that spot? Any idea?
Well, I'd see if they made a nuisance of themselves, and just hoped that they wouldn't build a dam that would mess up my system.
Right. So you think they might like chew through some of your pipes?
No,
or
my
just
pipes
plug
are
them
buried.
up? Okay.
But I think if they built a dam and covered up my whole little system, that would kind of be a problem.
Like where it pulls water, if they buried it in mud, kind of deal.
Where it collects the water.
Yeah.
Just full of trash and limbs and stuff, and that wouldn't be good.
But
I don't know. I might try one of that. What you guys did, put some screening or something around it, so maybe they tried to build a dam just to go up the creek 25 feet or something.
yeah.
It's not right there.
Right.
I guess I could park a barking dog there for a while.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how that worked.
I know the
Interesting.
game department's developing kind of a boom box that starts making all kinds of racket when the wolves get close. And if a guy did something out on beaver, but it's only triggered by a collar on the wolves.
Oh.
And we're going to test one on my place as soon as I get the damn thing fixed. I guess it broke. So that might work on beavers too. Put some kind of a collar on them that triggers a boom box. So when they get close, it just starts making all kinds of racket. Scares them off. That might be another trick. But some way to make them not come right there, just go somewhere else.
Right.
So that's kind of things. I know a lot of things are tested that don't work. That might be one of them. But you never know till you try it.
Do you think that we would benefit in the Methow Valley from more beavers since they kind of store water on the landscape?
Yeah, I think we would. We got quite a few rivers here. But you know, we may have more beavers than you think. I know back up Twist River, there's quite a few beaver dams on that river. I see quite a few. But I don't know, I really don't know why we don't have more. I don't know if there's a lot of trappers out there. I don't know anybody that traps. But I expect there are some, and I know they outlawed trapping, but I think you can still get a trapper's license.
I think you could still trap in Washington State with 5 months out of the year.
Well, you can't trap coyotes. I know that.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, for beaver.
Because that offends a lot of city people, and we don't want to do that. We don't want nobody in the city being offended at us. We just have to sacrifice a few calves, I guess.
What do you think policymakers, lawmakers need to know about beavers?
What I think what?
Policymakers need to know about beavers? Like laws about beavers? Is there anything that needs to change? Or anything in that kind of sort of thing?
Well, I don't know if the policymakers give a hoot about how good or bad the beavers are for you. I think they're mostly concerned about how many people scream at them.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
They're interested in their job, and if there's more people hollering that they want more beavers, they'll make a policy where you can't kill beavers. And usually they kind of go with the number of people that holler, which is in the cities where the people don't even never see them and don't know hardly anything about them except what they see on Walt Disney or TV. It'd be kind of beneficial if they was to talk to some people that had some beaver experience.
Right.
But then they still got to deal with these people that vote for them, you know. And because they won't have a job if they don't make all those people happy, they won't have a job.
Right.
So I don't know if policymakers can do much. They might wind up making all them people mad. Wouldn't have a job, so I'm not really sure they benefited. They could try to change the policy and for the benefit of beavers, and then all of a sudden they lose their job because they did that, and then the policy would get changed back like the way it was before, so really the guy really never accomplished nothing. So
yeah, I think we need a pretty good balance.
I don't think a lot of people have. It kind of depends on what the concern of the public is at the time. Beavers ain't really a hot topic, and so they might be able to sneak through some good benefits for beavers, without making too many people mad at them. But if they was to try to change something that had to do with wolves or grizzly bears, that's kind of a hot topic.
Yeah.
And they're not going to do that. The city people want grizzly bears, and they're never going to see one probably. They don't live there. We'd be seeing a lot of grizzly bears here, and we don't really have much say because we don't have many votes. We got a problem with wolves here killing cows, but city folks don't really care. They don't care. They just think we ought to just quit raising cows, I guess. Now I'm gonna have to fix.
Is there anything else that you want to say about beavers?
Well, they make a nice hat. And actually, I've seen beavers' coats and stuff really are warm. They got that little fuzz down low. I think it's a top notch kind of a coat. But, you know, beavers, like anything else, I think you can take out a few of them. Take out a few and they don't make a big difference, but then you still got, they need to be enough to feed the cougars and to keep propagating and keep multiplying. I haven't really seen the beaver population in this valley just explode, but I don't really know what's killing them off. And there's a bit, we need them, but we don't need too many of them. It's just like a wolf thing. We don't need too many wolves either.
Yeah, balance.
We wind up stepping in and changing the rules about things, and we don't really know what we're doing a lot of times. We're just trying to make people happy. We're not doing any benefits for the animal. The wolf population has been high enough now for a long time, but they keep wanting more and more, and they're just going to get to be a nuisance because we got plenty. We've had plenty for several years, but the people in the city want to see them because they like the idea of them standing on the hilltop howling at the moon, I guess. Meanwhile, when they're not howling at the moon, they're out there in the barnyard killing your cows. But they don't really care about that because they don't have any cows. Beavers is the same way. We're going to need a few beavers. We need a few. We don't need too many. I don't know what makes them disappear too much.
Well, I think that's all the questions I have right now anyway. Thanks for being interviewed.
Yep.
Well, that was the interview. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this interview with Bill White. I hope you learned something as I did. And if you guys could, of course, as we wrap up here, help us promote this podcast by leaving a review, sending us feedback, sharing this with your coworkers, with your fellow students, with people you know that would be interested, that would be great. Help us spread the word and continue to teach people about beavers and ecology and people and how those things come together to make a better world. Talk to you guys next.